This is the Universal Wrestling Podcast. Inside the ring, outside the ring, it's all here.
We're talking about the greatest sport of all, professional wrestling.
Now here's your host,
the cream of the crop,
Nick Dieterding.
Come on.
Welcome back to the Universal Wrestling Podcast. My name is Nick Dieterding. Thanks again for tuning in. Today's episode, we go one-on-one with JBL for the second time. Part 1 and 2 are now on YouTube and all audio platforms. On this episode, we talk Eddie, Vince, John Cena, even Michael Hayes driving his golf cart into a lake. A lot of good stories, but most importantly, the link is at the bottom. Please donate if you can. Subscribe if you will. Again, thank you for tuning in. Let's get to the interview. Here's part 2.
One person you mentioned that I wanted to ask you about is Bruce. I think I feel I learned more from Bruce than most other people. In your mind, what makes Bruce such a great wrestling mind? Because I feel like at times people think he's a Vince guy, maybe because of the podcast. But I feel he shoots it straight on the podcast, which kind of hurts him at times. About he's not talking about drama that's made up, but when I've been around him, I've seen him really care about character, really care about story, really care about the whole totality of the show and not just one single segment.
Yeah, Bruce has a backbone. I mean, he has, Bruce is not a yes man. He will disagree with anybody if he thinks that he's right. And that includes Vince. He may not do that in public as you would normally not do in the way that you would disagree on something creative. But Bruce is a guy who stands up very strongly for what he believes, and he grew up in the business, just like Dr. Tom did as well. And Bruce just has a terrific mind. He and Pat and Vince and Briscoe, kind of in that loop. Briscoe ran more of the towns, but those guys really were the foundation of WWE from the Hogan era till now. Of course, Pat's gone and Jerry's not there anymore with the company, but Bruce has been there the whole time. I mean, what he's seen and done, Bruce can lay out stuff that's unbelievable. He say, okay, we want to do this. And Bruce will come up with, all right. And he'll come up with a 6-month angle coming back with you. And you're saying, I was just talking about next Monday. Bruce is a really smart guy, and Bruce is a really good guy. He cares about the business and he cares about people.
Yeah. I before I left the company, I found myself in quite the heat spot. And there have been a lot of people who listen, the thing that sucks about the wrestling business and it's one of the good things about AEW is not a lot of jobs out there when it comes to wrestling. And sometimes people won't have your back. Bruce had mine on a night that I would like to have a do-over where something wasn't totally my fault, but I was an easy bag man. And he stood up for me in such a good way.
Hey, John, I know you brought up Impact Wrestling earlier. What are your thoughts on the current Impact Wrestling champion, Moose, calling himself the wrestling god?
I don't watch a lot of other wrestling other than WWE, and I don't mean any disrespect to anybody at AEW or Impact. I just don't have time to watch it. There's only so much you can watch. And look, I've been retired a long time. And if he wants to steal the name, I stole a gimmick from Ted DiBiase. So that's good luck to him, and I hope he does well with it.
Yeah.
I had no issues with it. I mean, look, I created the phrase in a backstage segment where we were pretty much half in the bag from drinking, me and Doug Basham. And they said, we need a segment real quick. And we were back in the back and we'd had a few. And I said, well, I've had a few. And they go, that's okay. We're doing it as if you have had a few. We need to kill some time. And Basham says something about, you're a wrestling, you're a god. I said, yeah, I'm a god. He goes, you're a wrestling god. That's where it came about. So, but if somebody's using that now, good luck to them.
So cool.
And I mean that sincerely. I don't mean that as snarky. I mean that sincerely. I mean, that's
no, the one thing, kind of going back to the Keith Lee thing and other stuff, you have always been about passing things forward to the younger generation. So I'm not surprised to hear about that. One younger wrestler you helped at the time was John Cena. And I know you've talked a lot about that. Have you watched the Peacemaker show yet?
No, I haven't. I'm a big fan of what he does. I think he's funny. And I think he's very intelligent. And so I enjoy the stuff he does, but I have not seen it yet. I do plan to see it.
Yeah. What did you think of John when you first started working with him?
Didn't know. It's a world of difference between going from 8 minutes match to a 30-minute match. 8-minute match is easy. You get out there, you start the match, you go to your heat, you go home. 30-minute match, you have to really take people on a roller coaster. It's not formulaic. You really have to put some stuff together. Now you may break it up, like Briscoe would used to do in the 15-minute segments for an hour and know where you need to be at certain tent poles. But it's a complete different mindset. And a lot of guys never make that transition. Yeah. I think John had done it first with Kurt Angle. I'm not sure which one of the greatest of all time. But I was second, at least second, may have been first. And I remember Vince asking me, he goes, "How is he?" And I said, "Kid's awesome, man." He just had a feel, and you knew it immediately when you got out there with him. He's one of the most respectful guys I've ever been around. It's unbelievable, his respect for the business, his respect for older guys. You couldn't help but cheer for him and root for him when he came in.
It's so amazing how he's broken out in such a big way. And I think that's one of the reasons he he was so good for so long. He's probably arguably the person who's made the most money for the company just from a longevity standpoint minimum. And the company's become such a global phenomenon under his time. And he just thought he was a person who I think it seems like, and I barely met him. It's just from being around, he looked at the big picture on a lot of stuff, kind of like you did. He would sit with younger talent. I know a lot of the 205 Live guys and would tell them hey, maybe you should wear clothing, when you wrestle, this kind of stand out, and stuff, because everyone's in tights, or giving advice on people's entrances, and just thinking every segment of the show, of a 16-segment show, can't be exactly the same.
Right. And that's a mistake a lot of young guys make. When I had my run, all of a sudden you look at your underneath heels, they're all wanting to smile and glad hand. If you have a top guy that's a snarly guy and a mean guy, all your underneath guys want to do the same. You have a Stone Cold that comes out flipping people off. Everybody all of a sudden wants to flip people off. That is the exact opposite of what they should be doing, because you can't out Stone Cold.
Exactly.
And you can't out Rock the Rock, and you got to be different. And that's where I think a lot of people miss. Well, that's successful, so that's what I've got to do. No, that's successful for them. And if it's really successful, it's too attached to them for you to be able to do it successfully. You need to find something different to do.
Yeah, 100%. I think one thing with that is was there ever a time where you kind of felt that you needed to make a really big zig when everyone else was zagging? Because it felt like you reinvented your character so many times. Was there a moment where you were backstage looking around, everyone's doing this, and I kind of need to go do that?
Yeah, there was a time I remember Vince talked to me about it, about JBL becoming a lot more serious and a lot less entertaining. And, I don't remember exactly the town or the city, but I do remember the exact time Vince talked to me, said nothing else entertaining. And it was because you're starting to see too many people trying to do something similar. And so you needed a switch from JBL to get to something else, especially, being a heel a long time. It's hard. It's kind of like the old J.R. Ewing, eventually everybody loves you, if you're a heel long enough. And so you got to find new ways to be that heel. And that constantly is some evolution going forward in the character.
I think one thing too, which I've been thinking about, I feel there's a weird balance. I guess I kind of come from a philosophy of wins and losses don't always matter as much as the story and kind of what you get out of it.
Yeah.
But then I also kind of feel there are times where you're pushed, you kind of abuse that and somebody's losing too much. Have you ever kind of seen do you have a philosophy on that? If there's a balance to hit, or one is better than the other?
Yeah, I always thought if it's just talk to Heath Slater on our podcast that been Briscoe, which I'm not trying to push. I just literally got off the podcast with Heath. And Heath lost to every legend that came through, and Heath got over $1 million. Sean lost that ladder match, the Razor, and Sean got over like $1 million. So I don't think wins and losses are as important if you have a way to get over otherwise. Or, like for Sean, his athleticism, for Heath, his charisma. I do think at some point, if you just get beat every single week, it snowballs on you the wrong way.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up Heath. When I started at the company, it was during the Heath Slater free agency stuff, and he was getting the biggest reactions, and he's eventually in the ring with like Randy and Brock.
Yep.
It was like, and like, Heath and Rhino are the first ever SmackDown Tag Team Champions at the end of it. It's amazing to look back on. One question, if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to. I was told to ask you about the golf cart story.
What golf cart story? About in Doral?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it's where Michael Hayes drove a golf cart in the lake.
Yes.
Yeah. But Michael Hayes denies it, but Michael Hayes denies a lot of things. And I love Michael. Michael taught Buzz Aldrin how to moonwalk. So we're in the Doral at Sergeant Slaughter's golf tournament. And everybody's, we're not making a lot of money there. They've got all these, big names there. They've got big sponsors, all this stuff. So anyway, Michael's then wife was sitting there, and I said, "Hey, are you right next to me in 238?" She said, No, we're in 140, whatever it was. I said, "Oh, okay. Well, now I got his room number." So when the bill comes, I said, "I got it." And so now we're not making much money. It's like 5:00 in the morning, and I said, "I got the bill." So they come over and they give me the bill, and I leave this huge tip. And Taker says, "Let me get that." And I said, "No, I got it. I'm like Tony Stark now. I'm just I got all the money in the world. I got it. So finally, Taker, we're walking out. Taker says, "Hey, let me split that with you." And I said, I got it. He goes, "John, come on, listen." He goes, "I'm not trying to insult you, but it's a lot of money." And I said, "I signed it to Michael's room." And Taker says, "That's the greatest thing I've ever heard." So
that's great.
We got to tee off about an hour from now. We're standing on the tee, and Michael comes up in the golf cart, and he's all mad at everybody. And he gets up on the thing, and he's cutting the promo. He's going to kill me. And I'm thinking, oh man, do not want to have to fight Michael Hayes right at 6:00 in the morning. And oh my goodness! And he slams on the brakes to stop and get out, and he slides down a hill and goes right in the lake and throws his golf cart right in the lake. That's the greatest thing we've ever seen. And me too. I said, "Can we leave before he gets out? Because he's going to be very mad."
Yeah. Did he have issues getting out?
What? Yeah. Yes. There were issues, all kinds of issues. Because Michael has all kinds of issues. I owe Michael from. I was over in Europe and I got hurt and I had to come back, and I called Skandor Akbar and I said, "Hey, Ak, I got no money." And I said, "I got a blown out knee." I said, "What can I do?" And I lost the loser leaves town match. I think it was the Freebirds actually that I lost the loser leave town match to. And so that gave me the excuse to go to Europe. Well, now I'm back. So he puts me under a hood with the long hair and everything's the same, except I just got a hood on. So we're doing these house show loops. I'm causing the Freebirds to lose. We're in some high school somewhere, and this labyrinth of halls and stuff goes back to the shower. And I get back there, and I'm on crutches. Floor's wet. I'm butt naked. All I got's a towel. I'm sitting back there. I finally find the shower. Well, there's Michael and Jimmy Garvin. And so anyway, hey guys. Anyway, they leave and they turn out the lights for the entire building.
Yeah.
And I'm in the middle of this building on a wet floor on crutches. No clothes, and it takes me forever to get out of this thing. I couldn't find my way out. It's pitch black. None of the switches, the lights worked. They turned off the entire electricity of the building somehow. So I owed him.
Yeah, it's Michael.
There is nobody like Michael Hayes. He's the greatest. Michael is. I think the world of Michael.
He is the most entertaining person you'll meet in life. Quite amazing. And
Michael's a brilliant guy too. I mean, brilliant. I don't mean smart. I mean, brilliant.
And that's what I wanted to ask you about. Like, it's, when everyone sees Michael, they think Napes and, the moonwalk and all these different things. But like
Hardy's,
from a story standpoint, goddamn, he is an amazing producer. And, when he was running SmackDown, the shows were so good. Like, what kind of makes Michael stand out compared to other producers?
To me, it's like what makes Einstein a great mathematician as compared to other very smart mathematicians.
Exactly.
There's one person, out of every group of smart people that just is above and beyond. And Michael is above and beyond. When I was in Texas, we'd sit in a meeting. The first time I'd ever been in a meeting with Michael and the Von Erichs, nobody spoke but Michael. No one said a word. Michael was the only one back then that was speaking, and everybody just, okay, whatever Michael says, we'll do. He's always had that respect about what he can do. I remember Road Dogg one time told him, he said, I just went to Michael, and he said, next thing I know, he's outlined the next several pay-per-views, and he said, I can't do that. He goes, am I supposed to be able to do that? and Road Dogg's the same way. Road Dogg's a very smart guy, but he was putting over Michael. Of course, Michael had been doing it longer too. I think Road Dogg now would be able to do something like that, but Michael just had an ability to put stuff together.
Yeah, and with Road Dogg, I could spend a whole hour talking about him just because that guy made such a big impact on my career. I just learned so much about the business. I think one thing I always respect about Michael is he always aims incredibly high, knowing that you can always pull it back. And I think that's one of the reasons he's done so many amazing main event matches, and top talent always loves working with him.
Yeah. When you want something creative, they would give it to Michael. Michael could deliver. Road Dogg's the same way. Road Dogg's a guy that's in that exact same mold. These guys are they're just head and shoulders better than everybody else at it.
Yeah, I really feel I'm biased because when I started the company, I was working more on Raw at this point, though I was going to both shows. That run after the brand extension when SmackDown started, Raw was really stacked, but those, if you look at each SmackDown as a record, that first year of the brand extension was all bangers, and Road Dogg along with Ryan Ward and Steve Guerrero, they were just such a great team of figuring out playing to talent's strengths and what can you do and what makes you stand out and what can you do better and how do you hide those weaknesses. And Road Dogg, he came up with so many good lines for people, the Samoa Joe Night, he made a lot of money for people.
Yeah, he did. And Finlay's in that same mold. Finlay's a guy that
100%.
Finlay to me is one of the biggest reasons for the women's division now. He is so good at taking people. Good trainers are very rare. A guy like Dr. Tom or Brad Reingens or some really great ones out there. Finlay's like that. You take a guy and you figure out what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. So it's not just cookie cutter. You're going to do a suplex, you're going to do this. Finlay would figure out stuff that people could do and tailor everything to that person. And it just, it's a real talent that some people have, and most don't. It's like any rare talent. If it was that easy, everybody would be able to do it.
Yeah. I don't know if Finlay really that well, and I was around him a lot. I don't know if he would recognize me in a lineup, but one of the things I was always very impressed with him was he knew everything going on everywhere. And I remember one meeting in particular that he really blew me away. We were talking about a top talent's new finishing move, and everyone's like, yeah, it's cool. And then Finlay kind of stood up. He was like, yeah, it's a cool move, but they're doing it here, and here, and then here, and here. Yeah. And it's we're the WWE. We're supposed to be the leaders. So do we want one of our top guys doing a move that this guy's doing, or this girl's doing, or this guy's doing? No, we want to be forward, and we want to be ahead of the curve, not behind the curve. And it was so passionate, and a lot of times Fit could get Vince on board on things because he's very educated on what's going on, and he makes a compassionate case, and he's also very passionate. And it's you learn a lot just by osmosis and being around him.
Yeah, and I think Vince had a lot of respect for Fit, as well he should. I've said it many times, Fit was the best heel I've ever seen. What he did in Europe was unbelievable, and nobody could match that. The amount of years in a row that he was the top heel, and he had incredible heat. He was so good. I wish the States had been able to see Fit at his best longer. He got over to the States and he got hurt in that crazy freak accident with the table. And that wasn't the same Fit as before. He was still one of the best in the world, but him before, he was the best in the world. I mean, he was the best heel I've ever seen.
Yeah.
He's a guy that you would spend like 12 months building up for a Mania match with like a young Cena or whatever. It's like, after I kind of mentioned before when you were telling me about that stuff, I went online and tried to find like old videos of that, and it's just like a completely different performer.
Yeah, and it's unreal. And that's one of the reasons that was so cool for me to be able to have a WrestleMania match. I had a match with Finlay. It was down in Orlando. I don't remember what Wrestle number it was, Mania number it was, but it was in Orlando. And, you know, I knew I had so much respect for Dave for what he had done in Europe that I was getting to wrestle with. I knew one of the true legends of the business. And that was really cool to me.
Hey, John, you brought up Randy, you brought up Finlay, a lot of my favorites, but up there with them, as you as well, is Eddie. Do you have any favorite stories of your late friend?
Yeah, you know, Eddie did more for me as far as the JBL character. Without Eddie, there would be no JBL. You guys would not be talking to me now if you did be talking to me about the days of Bradshaw and the APA. Eddie was everything to me because he wanted the match to get over. You know, it's the old thing when you're the champion, you want to be able to make everybody. And Eddie and I were good friends. And Eddie took it personal that when we first started the angle leading up to the Staples Center, that first match we had that was so bloody that we weren't getting a lot of steam behind it. And that's when Eddie came up with the idea of doing the heart attack angle with his mother in El Paso on Mother's Day. Yeah. And Eddie came up with so much of the stuff that I said. Eddie would call me all times of the night and say, hey, I got something for you, essay. And he would give me something to say or something to do. We were in Japan one time and the match didn't work very well. We'd work the next night too. And I remember thinking, I don't know what I did wrong. And Eddie called me about 2:00 in the morning. He goes, you never begged. He said, you got over here and you got in the Stan Hansen mode and you weren't JBL. And the next night I ended up on my ass at one point and I just kind of raised my hand up to get him to stop. And the crowd just booed like crazy. And I thought, of course, man, it's so simple.
Yeah.
He had a way about him that was just so good. I remember we had a match one time. We were following Taker, and whenever you follow Taker, it was tough because, you know, guys back then, they literally, whether they said it or not, it was follow this. And they'd have a great match in front of you, you know, just to see if you could follow it. And they were all over the place. It was a terrific match. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I got out there with Eddie and I called this spot, a double arm drag outside and pulled the top rope of La Plancha. And he goes, no, just sit here. So I sat there for a while. I said, all right, tackle, drop down, double arm drag, go to the top rope of La Plancha, and go through the drag. Nope, sit here. And all of a sudden I realized what he was doing. You know, when you got him up here, you can't keep him up here, not for a 30-minute match. You got to bring him down. And what we had done is we just brought him down. You know, we bored them. Yeah. And then we slowly started building them back up. By the time we left, they're all on their feet. And that was all due to Eddie, you know, and just one of those lessons that sometimes the light bulb goes on and clicks and you go, why did I think about that?
Yeah.
Do you remember your first 30-minute match?
No, I remember it was in Japan. Yeah, I kind of, yes. First match I ever had, went down to Texas and Lou Perez, who was the working cousin of Al Perez, had no-showed an event. And because due to travel or something, not just no-showed, I never met Lou, so I never thanked him for this. They needed somebody in the main event to work with Rod Price for the championship that night in Sportatorium. And they go, well, hey, we got this kid here that Brad Rangan's trained. He played pro football. Why don't we stick him out there and see if he can go as a surprise? And if he can't, we'll just go home in 2 minutes. Well, Rod carried me for 20 minutes in my first match in this main event for a title surprise. So that was my first match. And it was, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
You know, Taker's going to the Hall of Fame. We mentioned a couple of times. Do you have a favorite Taker memory or a favorite match you have with Taker or anything you want to talk about before he's inducted?
Yeah, we wrestled each other. I don't know how many times, 100, 200 times. I mean, literally, because I was we had closed every show for about a year or so or longer. And then, but we also, after that, were wrestling against each other. And before that, my first match on live Raw was against Taker. You know, back in the day, you had to go through Taker. And I don't say go through him, but you got a match with him on television that was usually 2 segments. And if you did well, then you got moved up the roster. If you didn't, they pretty much got rid of you. That was the barrier. That was the watermark was Taker. And because they knew it wasn't going to be his fault if the match went bad. So it's after WrestleMania when he wrestled Diesel in a very physical, violent match. Mankind is making his debut at the end of this match, and I got Taker for a segment or two on Live Raw. And I just remember standing there. We're somewhere out in California. The Pond was WrestleMania right before that, where Brett and Shawn did the Iron Man match. And I'd seen that Iron Man match and see Shawn repel from the ceiling. And I remember thinking, man, I just don't belong here. This place is overwhelming. You know, I thought I was good enough to be there, but when I see that, I'm really having a lot of doubts. The next day I'm standing there in the ring. This before cell phones, lighters go up everywhere. That purple haze comes up, that dong, dong. And I had all this in my mind about Shawn and Brett repelling, and now I'm seeing this incredible thing. Here comes the Undertaker and that shadow there. I'm in the ring with Dutch Mantell, Zebekiah right beside me. And I just remember thinking, okay, who do I call in Japan to get a job is what I'm thinking. And Dutch looks around at me and he can tell that I'm panicking. And he says, just be aggressive. Just be aggressive. Whatever you do, be aggressive. Yeah. So I get Taker in the corner right away and I'm just waffling. I'm going, okay, be aggressive, be aggressive. Taker says, do I owe you money or something? In the middle of and I'm thinking, I'm done now. And after the match, he was great. You know, he was trying to lighten the mood, but it was a bit overwhelming to be out there with him, especially early, because he had such an incredible presence. But that presence never changed. I stood in that ring so many times when he comes out and the entire place is just on fire with him coming out. And you're thinking, this is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. By the way, that's great advice by Dutch, because man, when I was there, I would see so many pushes die and so many pushes begin, depending how like good your punch looked. Where like I would tell talent I was close to, like, man, you better make that look good, because if you don't, people are going to notice. Two other quick questions I wanted to ask you is like, why does everyone love Teddy Long so much?
They never rode with him is the reason. If you rode with him, you hate him, like me and Ron do. He still owes me and Ron money. Yeah. You know, Teddy's one of these guys that Teddy's not a pushover. You know, Teddy's very outspoken. You know, what he believes in, he believes in. And I mean that in a good way. So it's not like Teddy's just kind of this, you know, Teddy stands for things. You know, he grew up in the Jim Crow South, you know, and he went through a lot to get in the business to where he is. And the reason people love him, you know, it's just one of those, he's just one of those guys that when you see him, you smile.
Yes.
And you like him. And he always has something funny to say. He always has a way to make you laugh. Teddy Long is one of the best guys I've ever been around. And me and Ron traveled with Teddy for so many years. We had so much fun with Teddy.
And then finally, we talked a little bit, but I guess we hit this with a little bit of the golf cart, but do you have a favorite rib that you have either pulled on somebody or it's been pulled on you?
That's a great question, because there were so many ribs back in the day. A lot of them were verbal. You know, some of them were mean. I was never into like the property destruction and stuff. I always enjoyed the fun ribs. You know, the one I've told several times was Big Show coming out in Europe. And I'm standing in the ring with Kurt Angle, and in the middle of his music plays, "Hey now, you're a rock star." And Kurt Angle says, "What's that?" And I said, "That's Shrek's theme music." And Kurt looks at me and goes, "Yeah, he's gonna kill us." And I said, "Don't worry. Listen, I did it. I'll take the blame for it. No worries." So Big Show starts running toward the ring. He's gonna kill us if he can catch us. I'm hoping he can't catch me. He's pretty quick. And when he gets in the ring, I said, "Listen, Show, I swear I had nothing to do with it. Kurt did every bit of it." I jumped out of the ring head first. Big Show didn't bite it and chased me until he caught me and beat me half to death.
Yes. There's I have a lot of good Big Show moments, as I think most writers at WWE do. One of my favorite was that I've never told you is during the pandemic, I was talking to an assistant who, there were some issues, like we were at the PC tapings and like a lot was going on. You're doing 2 TVs a day. And like, I'm kind of like going through like what you need to keep the show going. Big Show hears it. He walks in, pat on the back. I remember you getting that lecture. It's like, he's like going on for like minutes of how like Yeah, back when you were an assistant, I remember seeing like Ed talk to you this way and Kapoor talk to you this way. And he's just like laughing, having this big old jolly time. And I looked to the assistant and I was like, you know what's funny about that? And she goes, yeah, you were never an assistant here.
Big Show is, we better all be thankful that he's a good-hearted giant, because he would have killed us.
Oh yeah, I never want to be in the same state as him.
Hey,
we
John,
had so much fun. The thing with ribs was I loved ribs, and I didn't care if they were on me. I got ribbed a bunch, but it was just fun to me. We didn't have cell phones, we didn't have internet, we had each other, and so that's why there were so many ribs. Now some were some were pretty crazy and elaborate and went too far. Most of them were just good-natured ribs, and some of them would be built over several weeks, which I always found the most fun, because there was a lot of thought that would go into these ribs.
We may have Jeff Jarrett on the podcast.
Double J.
He has not confirmed a time, but do you have a good story that will surprise him to hear if we play this for him or ask him?
I don't know about surprising. Jeff and I worked a lot together back when they brought in Cornette and the NWA title, and that was WWE and
95, right?
I think so, yeah. And Jeff and I worked a lot together. Jeff is Jeff's one of those guys like Teddy Long. Everybody loves him. Yep. Yeah. I know. And Jeff's done a lot with my charity, and my charity. It's not my charity. It's in my Memphis Inner City Rugby in Memphis that I help with. Don't want to take credit for what those guys, Shane Young and Devin O'Brien, do down there. But Jeff's a wonderful person. I mean, Jeff's a really good guy. Big
heart. Comes off as George W. Bush sometimes, but he has such a big heart. I feel like he's going to say strategery. But that was actually,
he's the best. I think he plays up that accent a little bit.
He is so awesome. You can tell he's always working it.
I'll tell you a funny story about telling the truth. Talking about telling the truth. So we were in, I think Lexington, Kentucky. I don't remember. I think it was somewhere in Kentucky. And a bunch of the guys wanted to go out with The Godfather. The Godfather was on the cover of High Times, so he has a bit of a reputation. So the next day was like a noon show. And those guys show up like at 1:00. And we know they went out with Godfather. Yeah. So they show up, and Jack Land is sitting there meeting them at the door, and he's got that cigarette, and he's just sitting there just eyeballing them, which is the last thing you wanted from Lanza. He was the nicest guy in the world, but he's a man, and you don't want to, with a backbone, you don't want to cross it. You don't want to, and they had. And he goes, "This is what happened." He said, "Jack, listen, somebody stole our car when we valet parked it, and we just got it back." Jack's sitting there looking at it. He goes, "All right, you're fined." I forget what it was, 500, 800,000, but whatever it was. He goes, "And you're not working," which means they don't get paid. And he goes, "Be there tonight early." We had a night show. So he sends them off. Godfather comes in about 15 minutes later. He has no idea what's just happened. Jack meets him at the door, same thing. Cigarette. He goes, "Charles, what happened?" And he says, Godfather says, "Jack, I had a hell of a night." He goes, "I just got up." And Jack goes, "I want to hear all about it." He goes, "You're on after intermission." And that was it.
Nice.
He didn't lie.
John, so you actually kind of talked about the next thing I want to talk to you. Can we talk about your charity for a few minutes and explain to everyone what it is?
Yeah, I'd love to. It's what I do that to me is the most important thing I do. Memphis Inner City Rugby is the charity that I work with. Shane Young and Devin O'Brien are two young guys who went down for Teach for America down to Memphis, some of the worst child poverty in America, and started up this incredible charity. I met them because I started up a charity in Bermuda that was very similar, that used sport to bring kids in. Then you help them with either whatever they need, job skills, education, whatever it is. You're fighting incarceration or you're fighting gang membership, whatever that is, you get them in with a carrot, then you're able to help these kids. And they've done just a wonderful job. They've got 100% graduation rate out of all their kids, and they've got 100% of kids being placed after high school through their pathway program, whether that's college, military, or trade school. And it's just a remarkable thing that it shows that kids in at-risk environments are no different from kids anywhere else. And anybody who says that you need different curriculum or anything else is just not right. These kids are just as smart. They're just as capable. And that's what they're showing. We got a big fundraiser coming up May 22nd, 23rd. We're going to have some stuff on eBay for people to auction off and buy. 100% of the proceeds are going to go to the charity, which does incredible work.
And we'll definitely.
And by the way, it's going to be at Jerry Lawler's restaurant bar on Bill Street that Sunday night on May 22nd. King has been great supporting the charity. Jeff Jarrett has been wonderful. Wonderful supporting the charity. Kane's going to come out for the dinner on May 22nd. So got a lot of support and very, very thankful for it.
Before John goes, and I think one thing that has always really impressed me about you is you really care about people. And even though you are such an amazing heel on television, you're such a good person off of it. And you really care about this business, and you care about helping people and growing them, and just it's great to see, and you set a very good example. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Business has given me some real opportunities. I was down in Malawi, which is one of the poorest countries in the world, down below Tanzania in East Africa. Only 9% of the country has electricity. And I told Kofi this the other day. I told him that a few times, that I was trying to work with these kids, and I don't mean to speak much Showe or Chewa, the native tongue. They don't speak that much English. And so I'm trying to communicate with these kids. We want to help them. We want to help them with, whatever they need for subsistence, farming education, for malaria awareness, for job skills, for education, for AIDS awareness. We want to help these kids. And it was hard to communicate with them. I'm out there by myself with all these kids in this poor area. None of them had shoes. None of them will probably ever own a pair of shoes. And one of the kids in the back says, Kofi? And I said, Kofi Kingston? And he said, Kofi. And one of the other kids says, New Day? So I said, New Day Rocks. So all these kids are now doing New Day Rocks. And they're one of the poorest area. I have no idea where they saw it. I have no idea where it came from. But that little intro from WWE helped us to reach all these kids, which is so cool. It's one of the doors that opens up because WWE is such this wonderful global company. And I say wonderful company. People want to bash it, but I've seen the great stuff they've done with soldiers. I've seen the great stuff they've done with charities, and I think it's a wonderful company.
And John, the other thing I just want to talk about before you go, and again, can you tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I got the shirt on, not because I'm trying to just promote something for free, but I'm down visiting my mom down here in Texas, and I don't have any clean clothes. So this is nice. I'm flying out tomorrow. This is my last shirt that's clean. Gerald Briscoe and I, who hired me back in 1995 in WWE, sold Georgia Championship Wrestling to Vince McMahon, his brother Jack, one of the greatest champions of all time. We started doing this podcast during COVID only because we wanted to put smiles on people's faces. That really was the only reason. We never dreamed anybody would listen to it that of any size. We just got guys together and would tell those stories. Most stories the guys have never heard of, because it's different when a contemporary from that era interviews you rather than just a reporter interviews you. There's no guard, there's no barrier up. It's like talking in the back to, the locker room or in the bar, in the car. And so Gerald and I just started doing this, Gerald Briscoe and I started doing this podcast, and we're now over a year in and having fun and telling some, hopefully some stories that people enjoy hearing.
Yes. Yeah, let me tell you, if you have not heard the Mabel Rib story, please listen to it. Wrestling.
We got the footage, by the way, from Hornswoggle under the ring with the chicken in Mexico. It's one of the greatest ribs of all time. We got it up on our YouTube channel. Hornswoggle was scared. Long story, I'll get to it real quick. Hornswoggle was scared of chickens, and somehow Fit Finlay found this out. Hornswoggle's under the ring. He's going to come out. They put a chicken under the ring with him. The chicken attacks Hornswoggle. We've got the video footage. I called WWE and I said, can we use this for our podcast? I said, it was shot on WWE camera, but it's not your footage. They said, oh my goodness, yeah, this sounds great. So we got the actual footage from one of the greatest ribs of all time. Hornswoggle's the best. I love giving him a hard time. I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed being around Hornswoggle. We were around him a lot. When they did the YouTube show, Ron and I were around Hornswoggle. Hornswoggle, one time, me and Bruce are coming into WrestleMania in Detroit, and we see Bob Holly carrying something across a field. And Bruce and I are in a car, and because we've been in appearance, and he said, "Stop the car." And it's Hornswoggle. And Bob was carrying Hornswoggle from the bar. Hornswoggle had drank too much, and he's carrying him by his belt loop. And Hornswoggle's down like this, just hanging there. So, same thing. We get him and said, "Hornswoggle, have you been drinking?" Called him Dylan. I said, "Dylan, have you been drinking?"
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So we realized we've got to get him to his room because they take him to the green room. Like, man, this is his first WrestleMania. He can't get caught. You know, who cares that he's out drinking? It's not a big deal, you know, but you can show up at the TV hotel. Guys make big deals out of something that shouldn't be big deals. So Vince is coming. So we get him on a luggage cart. Me, Shane Helms, Bruce Pritchard, get him on a luggage cart, pay the bellhop to wheel him to his room. He goes right through the lobby. There's Hornswoggle passed out on a luggage cart, going through the lobby full of fans so we can get him out of there before Vince season.